Welcome to the Skilled Podcast from Growth Space, the place where we share stories and strategies from leaders who've turned growth and development into a competitive advantage. Our host is Omer Glass, co-founder and CEO at Growth Space. We're also hosted by Sam Thomas, senior L&D leader and co-founder of Experience Boost. Let's dig in.
Hello, welcome. I am so excited to introduce Kelli Ezell. Welcome to the podcast, Kelli. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Kelli Ezell. I recently joined BMI as the Vice President of Leadership, Talent, and Performance. I spent 15 years at Asurion, and I'm originally from Detroit. I moved to Nashville for an automotive company and found my way to Asurion quite quickly after moving to Nashville. Was there with Asurion for 15 years, and then recently, as in last Monday, started with BMI, so looking forward to that journey. Personally, I have 2 children. They are teenagers, so we're in the thick of the teenage life. I have a boy and a girl, and loving being a mom and loving balancing both career and home. So yes, nice to meet you, and I'm super excited.
Awesome. It's so great to meet you, Kelli. I'm going to jump into questions if you're cool with that. As a part of HR and in leading that function, you've said that HR's value is only as strong as its understanding of how the business actually makes money. And I love that, especially as someone in L&D. So what does it look like when HR truly sits at that table? And what's that difference in outcome when they don't?
Yeah, I definitely think that HR only is as valuable as they understand the business. And so what does that look like? You need to understand, how do we make money? What does EBITDA mean? What is an M&A acquisition? Leaders really only care about, growth and how they progress. And so HR's value is really sitting at the table, understanding that. And then we are the enablers. How do people fall into that? We're the fingerprints behind. We help them understand, how do we enable growth? How do we help them build that? How do we, within the capabilities that they have, how do we match people with their skills to the right seats? And then that's the unlock, in my opinion, is how do we make sure that we're putting the right people in the right seats at the right time, and understanding the business is the only way for you to know how to do that. You have to understand what the skill gap is, what are the opportunities, where are we at in that growth journey, and then that's when you place the people in the right places. And that's why HR is the most prevalent and most necessary to fully engage with business leaders, to understand exactly what they're looking for, and then how do we place people for that.
So it's interesting because I sit on the CEO, basically. I'm talking from the CEO perspective. And usually when I'm talking to my HR, there is a translation to be done, right? Like usually what happens is it will work well if my HR asks me, Omer, what are you most concerned about? What functions are not working? Stuff like that. But there is a translation to be done. And a lot of time when you talk about, okay, you need to understand the business, it's like, I would challenge you that it's not like everyone has to understand what EBITDA is. A seller needs to sell, and, an engineer needs to eventually make sure that we're writing code. Again, our word. But kind of like if we started with that, if you can double click on, okay, how do you do it in practice, right? Because everyone says that, yeah, we need to be very business savvy, we need to understand the business. But how do we make this translation work, basically?
Yeah, no, it's great. I think, I spend most of my time as an HR business partner, and I think that every HR practitioner should really spend time in that, because you're fully embedded in the business. If you consider it, you're kind of the front line, right? You understand exactly what widget needs to move to make the world go around, right? And so I think that when you fully embrace and are at the ground level, you can fully understand exactly how the business runs, how the business grows, what matters to leaders. If you're not sitting there and understanding what matters to leaders, you're sitting up at, kind of the top of the house going, hey, we should implement this leadership program, or we should implement this, performance check-in or this, every leader goes, oh, it's just another check the box. And I look at it very differently. I think that you need to look at HR to be the enablers. How do we help them grow? How do we help them thrive? And in order to do that, again, you have to fully understand, think about a tech world. I come from, Shireen was a tech company, and understanding our products that we deliver, understanding what matters to our customer, what is the frontline end user trying to get at it. And so then you back into that, well, what are the skills we need? What are the capabilities we need in order to develop those products or to get those products to market? And so in order to understand that, then you can play people to their strengths, put people in the right seats in order to then build out these products and technology platforms that are necessary and needed. But if you don't understand exactly what our customers want or what, a person that is buying the product wants, well, then you don't have the ability to really enable the business and help them thrive.
I completely 100% agree with you, Kelli. And Omar, just how it is that translation moment. And I think especially coming from an L&D space, you truly understand that translator agenda of working in there. You said something that I love, which is that HR is the fingerprints in that space. Can you unpack that a little bit for me? Just unpack the fingerprints. I love that it's connected to the end user and the C-suite. How does that translate?
Yeah, early in my career, I learned that kind of mentality of HR is the fingerprints behind. And what I mean by that is that we don't need to be forefront, right out in the front and center of, hey, we're on stage and we're leading from the front. I like to lead from the back. And so we leave our fingerprints behind, meaning that, hey, we're helping build the leaders up, build the trust with the leaders, build the accountability with the leaders. But we're the ones who kind of can see what's behind the curtain. We understand that if you do this, this is the domino that's going to happen. And so when I say fingerprints, it's like, hey, we are the ones kind of left behind to make sure that we are helping boost up the leaders and that they are kind of the ones that are building the trust and the capabilities, because everything happens through leaders. Even as an LD practitioner or an LD person, I don't believe that we should be the ones always training or, bring everyone to a classroom and speak academically to them. It's really more about gritty and scrappy and, again, what matters to the leaders. And so it should be a partnership. And so when I bring a training to a company or I say, hey, let's do this leadership, it's more about everyday leadership. How do you build capabilities within a leader every day and that they're part of this, that they actually are the ones presenting in the classroom. They're the ones that are the ones who are sharing, hey, this experience I had, and this is how this happened, and this is what the outcome was. And with that, again, we're kind of pushing them along. We're behind the scenes, ensuring enabling them.
I think that enablement is the perfect segue to the next question, because when we talk about the big elephant in the room of AI, everybody wants to talk about AI, and people either do or don't know what they're talking about in AI, but AI being that change agent. And so you've mentioned that you're less interested in talking about AI as a whole, but more interested in looking at HR's role in navigating what's coming. And I can see that in how you're looking through the HR lens of how is this going to impact everyone down the road. So what's that distinction and why does it matter for how those HR leaders that you're supporting are showing up right now?
Yeah, I actually think, again, coming from tech and then moving to a BMI is 90 years old. And so it's a great transition. And I think that the world of AI, obviously it's everywhere. And in my opinion, HR needs to be on the forefront and be very proactive in how do we manage this AI transformation and change. We are the change agents in order to help business and leaders grow and leverage AI. AI needs to be weaved in within our DNA and just a part of every day. But it doesn't need to be, it shouldn't be a standalone. And it shouldn't be, hey, let's just go take this training. And what does it mean? It's actually use cases. What do we do with this? How do we make it better? How do we streamline? How do we collaborate differently? How do we move quicker, faster, more dynamic? But there's still a human component. I truly believe why HR needs to be in the front of this is because without understanding the human element of how AI is going to interact with companies and teams, we're going to lose. We're going to lose that battle. Like, honestly, you have to bring people along in this AI journey. You have to build trust with your teams. You have to build capabilities. It's daunting and scary. Think about people who have been in the world for a long time, and I'm one of them. I'm on the older end of the spectrum here, and I think that it's a little scary at times of like, what does this mean? What does this mean for the frontline, entry level people? What does this mean for how do I gain experience? Again, I'm a mom of 2 teenagers, and I believe that they're like navigating this world that it's just going to be part of every day. It's not even a standalone, like, how do I do it? It's just, how does it make me better? But again, there's always this human component to it. Like, how do we use it? Where's the thought partnership in this? Where do we ensure that we're, again, leveraging it to make it simple, faster, and better? But how do we overlay thought? How do we overlay partnership? How do we overlay like challenging? Like, does this actually make sense? Where do we use this? Where do we leverage it? I mean, it definitely makes the world faster. It definitely makes your job faster. I mean, if you're not using it today, then you are kind of being left behind. But again, using it for the better, to make sure, okay, yes, my decks are prettier. My presentations are really great now. It's amazing. I don't know how to build decks until you put it in and it's beautiful. However, the content has to matter. And so you're the one, the thought partner behind, okay, what is it? What are we trying to say? What are we trying to get at? Again, without HRs challenging our leaders, challenging our C-suite, saying, okay, that's great. We need to use AI, but where are the people in that? Where are the skill sets that we need? What do we need to build in order to use AI to its fullest capability? That's where we come in, especially in the L&D space. Like, there's a skill gap in many capacities. And so how are we bringing them along and closing that skill gap and making sure that we're using it in the appropriate manner? And then also, again, with thought partnership.
There is something in your answers that keeps coming out, and I thought like was a connecting thread. I think you're very much, basically, I'm making an assumption, but we talk about in the flow of work, right? As basically kind of like a framework to doing things. So you're talking about, okay, I'm like the fingerprints. I'm helping influence from behind, not coming like with my ego, with my programs, or like enforcing my stuff on everyone. And even AI, like, I'm with you, it's another thing. There are a lot of things that people care about. This should be one of them, but it's not like, yeah, like AI, the way I use AI. I heard my VP R&D told me he was in a conference with a lot of other VP R&Ds. A lot of them are kind of like venture-backed startups. And some of the VP R&Ds are just burning tokens just to show the CEO and the board that they're using AI, right? And it's so easy to burn tokens, but it's kind of like, what are you solving for? And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of like you're trying basically to understand in the simplest form. I usually like to talk in like 5-year-old language in order to make sure a very simple, but it's kind of, okay, what do you need to do? Like, what's your job right now? What's the most important? And then how do I enable you? And AI is one of them, basically. If you need to do, like, to use AI for your work, great, I will help you and I will enable you, but I will not do like big AI programs, but kind of like work basically bottom up. So I'm curious again, first of all, if I got it right, but second of all, kind of like in the flow of work philosophy, how does it manifest in day-to-day life, like in learning and development? Like, what's the difference between, okay, we're launching this leadership program, or, hey, this is what you need and this is your actual job and this is how do I enable you, if I'm making sense?
Yeah, completely. I think AI is an amplifier for what we're already good at. It's not a replacement, right? And so I think in order to understand that, you have to really be a little vulnerable right now of like, what are things that are today that we could look at and say, how do we make it easier? How do we make it simple? And I do think that's the world of HR, is to simplify. Someone's told me this before, an analogy like the iPhone. The iPhone is super simple, right? You look at it and you're like, doo, I know exactly where to go. But underneath the iPhone, there's obviously all this very difficult technology that was built to make it simple. That's HR's job. HR's job is to take all of this genius at the top, and how do we simplify it so that, to your point, elementary can understand, right? It's at that level. And so I think, like, when you think around AI, how do you break it down? Where are there places where you can leverage bots, leverage technology, where it's, user friendly and it's very like see spot run kind of situation? Or where is it that, hey, you can take it and say, hey, how do we make this better for the mass? How do we make this more collaborative? How do we streamline? How do we make it? And so you have to look at use cases, right? Simple, very simple whiteboard. What are all of our initiatives? Where are some that we can overlay in AI or take that? And so it is very, very breaking it down to the kind of that elementary and looking at a basic list of, okay, I have my initiatives here. How are we going to help our team grow one by one? Is there an AI component that we can leverage and use? And then again, if you think around technology and platforms, there's 100 out there. And most companies are really kind of only allowed or in the journey of what makes sense. What platform do we use? Is it allowable? Is there security components to that? And so, you have to be within compliance and you have to keep your standards and ethical and integrity is always first and foremost. And so I do think it's breaking it down into more simple micro and understanding your initiatives, and then where can you overlay AI. And that's why I think with an L&D, we should be teaching our teams, hey, let's get AI 101 out there. Let's train everybody on how do I use, chat or any platform you want to pick. How do I actually, create a prompt? What does a prompt mean? What am I telling them? But then, okay, so everyone has the basics. Now it's like, okay, what initiatives are we working on that we can actually overlay AI or just take away because AI can do it for us? But that's where I think the scariness and the trust has to come in. People have to trust the leadership chain, trust that they are, not just wanting to eliminate headcount. They're really wanting to enable and make the business better and change your skills. It doesn't mean you're going to be going away, but your skills will need to change and you will need to continue to grow. And that's where kind of LD comes in. It's like, what is that skill gap? How do we close that skill gap? And so I think it's taking it at the micro level and really understanding the initiatives that are out there. What's your top 10 initiatives that you want to accomplish this year as a company and as a function and as a team, and really breaking that down.
I think it's so important that you said that trust is that prerequisite. And I think that's so true from the C-suite down to a frontline manager, is that a lot of people are scared. And giving people grace in this space of learning a new skill, of prompting or whatever it may be, and even a new tool, depending on which one is in their space. So in that grace space, which I love, and I really want to highlight that you said that AI is really helping people be good and be better at what they're already good at. It's an amplifier. And that's such a great point when we're looking at AI. So what does that look like in practice when your CEO is pushing for adoption and your employees are really scared? What does that look like?
Well, I think we're all trying to figure that out, actually. I don't know. I mean, if everyone has the answer to that right now, I think we're maybe 2 years in the future, because it's so new. It's so relevant right now. And I do think, I think we talked a little bit about conferences or, right now, if you go to a conference, the only thing that's discussed is AI and how do we use it? How do we, to your point, our C-suite is pushing it. And so again, I think that, if HR is the change agents, well, then we have to navigate this change. We have to navigate building that trust. And so it's very baby steps. There has to be grace. You can't just go, oh, we're going to go have a riff because, we don't need those people anymore. It's like, well, we don't actually know. Let's figure it out first. Let's understand what are the capabilities? What are the skills gaps? What is it that we need? What are they going to enable? So I think it has to be, when you think around change, you have to kind of manage this in a much more methodical way and not just kind of rip the Band-Aid. And so everyone's in this journey right now. And I don't know if anyone has that answer, to be honest. As I said, many companies are kind of sat at round tables all the last 4 months around what does this look like? And I think that, everyone's trying to figure that out as we go on this journey together. It's similar to, I don't know, when the internet came. People didn't know, and it was like, oh, it's going to take jobs away. And now it just helped us. Now, can you even imagine doing your job without the internet? No, of course not. But everyone still has a job and we're still able to, make the world go round. And I think that AI will just be similar. It is just going to amplify and make us better and make us quicker. We may not be able to know how to spell because my children don't know how to spell because everything just pops up for them. But again, it'll be different skills that they need. They need to understand how to leverage the system, how to use the technology, how to work with one another. And I do think it's interesting because you see a little bit of a transition too around companies saying, hey, yeah, we're using AI, but we still have a human touch. Like I just saw I don't know if I'm allowed to say, I saw a commercial that said, hey, like we want people to come into our buildings and see us. And so there's still a very much need for human connection, human touch, human interaction. And so again, how do we use AI to better us and make us, more profitable in a business setting, but essentially through people?
I think it's even more. AI makes the human skills more important because the rest becomes commoditized, right? So it's much easier now. You can run analysis, you can do better presentations, you can do everything. You can write code very easily. But eventually we're humans working with each other, right? And we're we're buying things, we're selling things, a lot of interaction is human. So I think there will be a big shift of more skills towards kind of like the human to human skills, kind of like the softer skills, because a lot is basically being commoditized. But being able to build relationships, if that's your top skill, or really convey the message or something like that, you cannot outsource it.
I love it. And that's why I think HR needs to be in the front of this, because there's a human element to AI. And I think that people are craving, how do we leverage AI but still keep that human component in there? How do we still have thought? How do we still have interaction? How do we still make sure that we build relationships, we influence, and HR's role is to influence. We influence decisions and key outcomes because we know the business and we understand that, but our lens is through the people. And that's why I think too, kind of going back to the beginning questions around why, HR, why having a seat at the table and why does it matter? Everyone that has a seat at the table has a different reasoning for being there. And our reason is really, one, we understand the business, but two, we're looking at it from the human capacity lens. And so while your C-suite's typically going, okay, I need to do this in order to hit this number and this growth, but where we look at it is like, okay, yes, we need to do all that. How do we get there with our people? How do we make sure we're bringing our people along? How do we make sure that we're communicating that to the right people, to our end user, to our customers? And so we kind of build that capability through the people. And that's why it's important for us to understand the business and then be a seat at the table to enable the people side of it.
I completely agree. I think people use HR so frequently, they forget the H stands for human. And I think as we're moving into that AI space, it's also your head and your heart. And that's what you're bringing into that AI lens. Like you said, an AI can build a great deck for you that maybe you didn't have that skill set to do, but you still need your head to rectify, does this make sense to the end user? While it may be beautiful, does it still make sense? Does the people on the screen have 6 fingers? This is what we're still using our heads for in that space. So I completely agree with you. And another thing that I just wanted to go back on is in a previous conversation that you had with Madeline was you described that skill development as we're looking at the people and what we're doing in L&D as that 3-legged stool. So you have L&D, you have comms, and you have the HR business partnership. And especially as you have that seat at the table, as you are sitting at that apex of all 3 of those roles in your new role, where do you see most organizations have that stool teetering?
I don't know if I'm the only one who thinks that that's the 3-legged stool, but I honestly think that without one of them, your role in HR will fail. You have to have your comms partner, you have to have your HR business partner, and then you need to have your kind of LD person, all 3 rowing in the same direction. I don't know if it's a failure per se by any means. I think it's just a matter of connection and ensuring that you're all know what true north looks like. And so I think that at times it teeters differently. It's just like, sometimes comms isn't brought in, or sometimes your LD partner is last at the table to understand, hey, what are we doing? Your HR business partners are heads down. They are in the business day to day. They're juggling 50 by balls. I was an HR business partner for most of my career, and you're literally juggling it all. You're kind of that first line of defense for all things HR, and your leaders, depending on if you're, get 600 people in your function or 6,000 people, you're that person. And so you're looking at what's simple, what's easy, how do I deliver this, what helps my leaders. And so LD needs to understand that. We use our HR business partners to deploy programs to ensure that, hey, this is not another check the box initiative, but this actually is going to help them be better and move quicker, especially with the world of AI. It's like, how do we actually help them be better? How do we help them manage through this change? And that's, again, without communicating it appropriately and correctly, you kind of lose the trust. And so that's why I call that the three-legged stool. I think you have to, in order to build trust with your teams, you have to understand the business and you have to communicate it, why it matters to them. What is it going to do for them? How is it going to enhance their day-to-day? How is it going to make their life simple? Because everyone is moving so quickly that you have to really kind of bring all three along in order to stay connected. And again, our role is to help the business. We are not ones who are building anything. We are the enablers behind it. And so making sure that those three stay connected to grow, to help the business grow, that's key.
I 100% agree with you, especially as a practitioner in that L&D space. And HR, I love that you said that we're not the ones making the money, but we are the ones enabling the people who do. And so I think that just lands us at such a crucial moment, especially as AI is truly making a lot of our jobs easier in some of the ways. But I think that's a really great opportunity for us to really understand that root cause. And in that three-legged stool, we have multiple viewpoints to be able to do that. So that's a great analogy that I'm definitely going to be using for sure. So my favorite question of the podcast ever that we ask everyone is, if you could go back to baby Kelli in HRBP world and give yourself a piece of advice, what would that be as she's venturing out into her role as an HR leader?
Yeah. Again, I have teenagers, so I feel like I think about this a lot of, hey, be smart about what you want to do in life. And if I could go back in time, I think I would definitely lean into playing to your strengths. Know where you add the most value and don't really waste your energy trying to lead from places that are just not naturally for you. I think that if you play to your strengths, you can enhance and continue to grow. Doesn't mean you can't round out. You should round out. But I do think I would say lean into what drives you and motivates you and kind of push on that. I'd also be, and this one is key for me, I'd be much more intentional about who I surrounded myself with. I think I've been super lucky and super blessed in my career to be surrounded by smart people that really challenge my thinking, push me to grow, aren't afraid to be honest in their perspectives and their thinking. I think that those relationships matter the most. They sharpen you, they round you out, they help build tools in your tool belt that you wouldn't be able to build on your own. So I think that really pushing yourself and being intentional about not being the smartest person in the room and learn from those that are just, that look at things differently, look at life differently, have diversity of thought, have diversity of thinking. I would really challenge myself to be smart about that. Earlier on in my career, I think that sometimes you tend to surround yourself with like-minded people, and that's just not how you build, in my opinion. I think you should build your network organically and be smart about staying true to who you are. I'm a scrappy and gritty HR person. And early in my career, I was told at times, oh, you may not have executive presence or you may not, and I leaned into trying to be someone maybe a little differently than who I was. And then I had some really great leaders in my life who said, no, be true to you. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm hyper, I'm scrappy, and that's okay. And I bring myself to the table, but I also know when to pull it back and when to be smart. And so, leveraging your strengths again. But I think that just be true to who you are. And the other thing I would say too is practice the pause and be okay in the pause. As I'm older in my journey here, I look back at those who are starting off and there's a lot of like, oh, I got to get there. I got to be here. And I should be at this level and I should be making this, or I should be sitting at this seat and doing this. And my advice is to practice the pause. It's okay to be in that role for a minute and learn and really gain real life experience. And sometimes that is the crap job or the place that you just don't want to be, but that's where I grow the most. That's where you literally will learn the most. And so I think being really smart about practicing the pause is key. And I also think understanding what balance means. If I were to start over from the beginning, I would say your life is never going to be even all the time. Like, you're not gonna be able to be home and build your career all at the same time. But if you're lucky enough to surround yourself with people that one, challenge you, help you grow, but know you as who you are, the balance is going to ebb and flow. I have been so blessed to be able to be a mom and a career-loving person who've done pretty well. I think that is key, and it has been. And I also have a really great partner. My husband's amazing, and so find that too if you can. But wherever that balance is really great. I do think, again, if I look back and I said to myself, be okay in the pause, like. Be patient. Patient is not my biggest skill. And I think I would remind myself and I would remind others, patience is key. And that's where you just really learn the grit and really learn the experience. And it will just help you be better. You have a long career. It's a long journey. And so just enjoy the moments and take all the experience you can and be okay with, hey, it may not come right when you expect it, but it will come if you continue to be true to yourself and have integrity and really surround yourself with great people.
So just one comment, because I really loved what you said about it's so not straightforward. Because think about it, all the performance evaluation, feedback is about what you need to be better at, right? But we're not, I think in general, we're not playing enough to our strengths, but we're trying to, because you talked about skill gaps, right? You talked about, hey, like in order to do your job, you need to focus on this skill. But there is something about playing on those strengths. Again, most of my examples are from basketball, but it's like everyone has a role, right? And like someone is very good at like three throw, like a 3-point throws. Someone is better defender. Someone is just needs to stand like behind the basket and shoot the hoop, right? Just if you'll be the best in one thing that's kind of like natural for you, so it's also not so much effort, there will probably be a great spot. But if you will be the best, it's much better to be a best in one thing than kind of like mediocre in everything, right? And so yeah, I love it. It's a great reminder. Just kind of like play on the strength. It will be funner, and yeah, eventually you probably end up being more successful.
Yeah, completely. Again, you have to round yourself out and be smart and intentional about your career journey. It doesn't mean just because you love one thing, that's the one thing you do only. It's more about leaning into what comes natural and what brings you joy. But, you still have to be smart about rounding out your skill set in some capacity. But yeah, I definitely think playing to strengths is if you ever done as LD, you've done strength finders or things that, like, hey, what am I really good at? And then that's why I believe as a leader too, round yourself off with people who are good at things that you're not. And so as a team, collectively, you're all raising the water level, because that's the key.
I love that. And it's such a great moment to end on. I use that in my leadership journey a lot of I'm not great at everything, but together we are. And it's such a good thing to just really be good at what you're good at and leaning into that. So Kelli, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for a great conversation. We're so excited that you were able to join us today. So thank you again. And look forward to seeing you on LinkedIn and in new conferences and seeing your new work.
Yes, thank you. Thank you both so much. I appreciate it. This has been great. Thank you so much.